Hey gang, it's your boy Platt, and today I show you how to make root beer moonshine. So let's go. Alright, so recently I was doing a little research on just the topic of moonshine in general, but I found some great flavored moonshine recipes, so I thought we'd try one today, and that is the Root Beer Moonshine. Before we get going though, real quick, I want to go over some terms because I've done a couple of these flavored moonshine videos before. I did a brown sugar moonshine and an apple pie moonshine, and I get some feedback, so I want to answer some questions up front. One of the things I get is all the time is like, well, that's not real moonshine, or this is moonshine, that's not moonshine. The reality is the term moonshine, there's no legal definition for moonshine, not as far as the TTB, who regulates alcohol here in the U.S. There's no category, official category for moonshine. Now, while a lot of people think of moonshine, they think of that unaged corn whiskey that got made in Tennessee or Kentucky or West Virginia or what have you. The reality is the term moonshine itself was just kind of a catch-all term for any illegally made booze. So besides that corn whiskey that was made in Appalachia, moonshine also included things like bathtub gins that were made in the big cities during Prohibition, or some of the rot gut rum that got ran up from the Caribbean or whatever. It was just a catch-all term. So there's no need to be dogmatic about what moonshine is, because again, the term really is just kind of a catch-all term. One of the things I also get too is when making these flavored moonshines is, well, you're not distilling it, that can't be real moonshine then. Well, the reality is most of these flavored moonshines that you'll see just take a neutral grain spirit as a base and then add the flavoring. And that's pretty much the same what they're doing with like a flavored vodka or whatever. It's just, you know, they have vodka, they just add additional flavorings to it. And for the person that makes, you know, this at home, it's just so much easier and more efficient or whatever just to go buy some neutral grain spirit than it is if you had a still, even if you had a still and were able to produce it. Again, once you start adding flavorings or whatever, you're kind of masking the base spirit, so no need to go through the trouble of, you know, making the base spirit when you just go out and buy it and make your life a little simpler. So again, no need for being dogmatic. Also too, the flavor is not added in through the distillation process. Only really gin is made where the flavor is added in the distillation process, either through maceration, percolation, what have you. Again, when making, you know, most flavored spirits, you've already got the base spirits, you're just adding the flavor, and that's kind of what we're doing here. So again, don't get so dogmatic about that. Some of you may say, well, hey, I go to the store and I see something labeled as moonshine. Well, there are things labeled as moonshine, but again, according to the TTB, there's no official category for moonshine, so there's really nothing. It's not like tequila or scotch, which has certain laws that says this spirit has to be this before it can be labeled tequila or scotch or what have you. There's no such thing with moonshine. Actually, some of the moonshines out there are just, again, neutral grain spirits that get cut with water and just thrown in a bottle and labeled. So there's that. Again, avoid the just need to stick to the term moonshine or your thoughts on the term moonshine. Also, one of the things that I get is, what's the difference between a flavored moonshine and like a liqueur or other flavored spirits? Well, the difference, and a good example is, I've done a video on root beer schnapps. So I'm going to make root beer moonshine. I've already made root beer schnapps. If you review that root beer schnapps video, you realize the sugar content as a percentage-wise is higher. Most of your liqueurs are going to have a lot of sugar, and that's because there is an official category for liqueurs in the TTB, and there's a minimum amount of sugar required. Where flavored moonshines, some of them will have some sugar in them, some of them won't, but it's not necessarily a requirement of water. Where liqueur, or kind of what we use as schnapps here in the U.S. water, by law you're required to have X amount of sugar in it. You'll find that liqueurs are just more viscous because of that additional sugar. Now we're going to add sugar in this recipe, but it won't be at the volumes that we would a liqueur. So that's the difference between those two. With that being said, enough talking about Root Beer Moonshine. Let's make some Root Beer Moonshine. Alright, so we're going to start making our Root Beer Moonshine. Don't feel like you have to write this down. I will leave down below the recipe so you can have everything you need. Also, feel free to scale up or down the recipe however you want. Just keep everything in proportion and flavorized. You'll be alright. We're going to start off by making our quote-unquote sugar solution. Now, this is something I do in all my other liqueur making videos, and this is where, again, the root beer schnapps is different, or the root beer moonshine is different than the root beer schnapps I made and some of the other things. The other liqueurs I've made, the peach schnapps, root beer schnapps, the other ones, the sugar, as the bird knows, the sugar solution is basically 1 part sugar to 1 part water. So whether I scale up, you know, the sugar to 2 cups, well, 2 cups of water, 3 cups sugar, 3 cups of water, what have you. Here, the proportions of sugar to water are going to be different. We are heating up 5 cups of water. Sorry about the bird. We're heating up 5 cups of water, where we're going to add in roughly about 2 cups of sugar. Actually, our mixture is 1.5 cups of white table sugar and 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. The brown sugar is just great complementary flavor with the root beer. I would not, if you wanted to, you could go totally just white table sugar. That's fine. I do advise, though, I don't know if I would get into the honeys, maple syrups, agave nectars. I wouldn't get too crazy with the sugars because this is about the root beer flavor, not the sweetener as much, just more complementary flavors. But like I said, the brown sugar, I think, adds a nice touch to the root beer flavor. And if you find old classic root beer recipes, brown sugar did play a role. So we're heating up this water. You don't have to boil it. We just want to get it hot enough to where the sugar easily dissolves inside. We're not worried about sanitation as much because, again, we're adding high-proof spirit. But if you want to bring it up to a boil, just to be safe, that's fine. But we're just going to go ahead and add this in real quick. And we're just going to stir this till we get everything fully dissolved. And then once we get everything dissolved, we'll let this cool down, and we'll come back to add the rest of our ingredients and start to wrap up. Alright, so we've allowed our sugar solution to cool. Real quick little note, just something to keep in mind. Don't throw the alcohol in when you're heating up your sugar. Alcohol has a lower boiling point than water. You just end up burning off alcohol, so you don't want to do that. So let this cool down completely before you add your alcohol, which is what we're going to do next. We're using Volkov grain alcohol. It's 153 proof. Poor man's Everclear. Now with Everclear, one thing you'll have to watch is each state's a little different on the max limit of ABV. Some states will allow the 180 proof Everclear to be sold. Other states it's 150, 153, something like that. Here in Nevada, I believe I could find the 180 Everclear, but this is what my local liquor store had, and it'll work for us. We are going to add 2 cups of our overproof spirit into here. There we go. Also, too, you don't want to be doing this around open flame. That's why the flame is off, too. Because at 153, that's when spirits do get flammable. 80 proof spirits and below, you generally won't get flame, or you might get a little, but when you get over like 100, 110, that's when things become real flammable. So again, you don't want to do this around an open flame. See, the bird will coach you up on that one. Alright, next we're going to add 2 tablespoons of our root beer extract. You can find this easily in most grocery stores. Alright. Be careful, this stuff is dark and thick. It will definitely ruin some clothing. Next we're going to add a half a tablespoon of vanilla extract. Again, vanilla is just a great complementary flavor to our root beer. Again, if you're making some homemade root beer, you might find some recipes that add vanilla extract. All right, we're going to mix this up. And then I'm going to go ahead and bottle this. You're going to get roughly like a 1.75 liter, like a handle size container of this root beer schnapps. ABV wise, we're probably looking at 50-55%, because again, we've got more water in this than we would normally our liqueurs, and so we're going to drop it a little bit. As Bert will tell you, if you add 180 proof Everclear to this, mid 60s, a little higher on the ABV. So let me go ahead and bottle this, and we'll come back to taste. Okay, so to wrap up our video, real quick, we're going to review our recipe. We took 5 cups of water, we heated it up, and then we added our sugar, 1.5 cups regular white table sugar, and then 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. If you just want to go all straight white table sugar, that's fine. The brown sugar, just in my opinion, adds a little more to the flavor, a little bit. We let that solution cool, and again, it's important to heat that solution. It lets the sugar blend in easier. Also remember, don't add the Everclear in or the overproof spirit while you're heating it. You'll burn off the alcohol. You want to avoid that. So anyway, we let it cool down. Then we came back, added 2 cups of our base spirit, which was just a neutral grain spirit, 153 proof. Again, similar to Everclear. If you want to use Everclear, that's fine. If you have access to quote-unquote real moonshine, feel free to use that too. Whatever you like on this one. And then we added 2 tablespoons of our root beer extract, 1/2 tablespoon of vanilla extract. We let this all cool down, and now we're ready to try. The recipe will be down below in case you want an actual copy of it. Let's give this a try. Well, that's good. That's definitely root beer. It's the predominant flavor. And again, that's the thing with working with these extracts, where they're a powerful flavor. Root beer is the flavor we're going for. So again, there's no need to get too cute with the base spirit, whether it's quote unquote real moonshine or corn-based moonshine or a neutral grain spirit, which we used. Also, too, I want to point out one thing I've noticed is compared to the root beer schnapps I made in an earlier video, and some of the other liqueurs I make, this is not as viscous. This is just, it's still sweet. We did add sugar. We have the root beer flavoring, the vanilla in there, but it's not as sweet. It's not as viscous. It's not as thick. Actually, this probably is a little more dangerous because it goes down fairly easy. It really does just taste like root beer, but we know there's alcohol in it. So if you thought to yourself, well, gee, I'll just pour this over a cup of ice and just knock the whole thing back, that's where you get a little trouble. And that's sometimes the advantage of the liqueurs. They have so much sugar. You're not going to drink a lot of that just because, again, it's so sweet. You'll kind of pace yourself in that way. Or this, like I said, this goes down pretty easily, actually. Well, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please subscribe down below. Also, please like the video because it lets YouTube know we're putting out good content. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them in the comment section, or you can always contact me on the Twitter page. Well, until next time, bottoms up.